Howdy, Hold Heads, and welcome to Hi, it's Lester Hole. Kayla, give us the background on that real quick. Is that the new name suggested by Jillionaire, or what's that?
Jillionaire, she, as you know, doesn't listen to this.
Nope.
Not supportive of the pod.
None.
But the other day, she was like, I tried to find it, but I couldn't. And I said, user error.
Yeah.
And I asked her, what did you search?
Right.
And she said, the name. Hi, it's Lester Hole.
Wow.
And I said, well, yeah, you're not going to find anything with that. But
No.
I'm surprised nothing came up, even with Lester Holt in there. But
yeah.
Again, maybe it did, and she just was like, well, that's not it, because it's not called that.
And she's like, that's it, I'm done. I'm done trying.
Yeah.
Oh, also, I commented, Dateline Instagram posted some shot about some classic Dateline that Murph Dog was hosting. And so I hop in those comments, and I say, hey, what's up? March 15th is the year anniversary of the last time Murph Dog has hosted a new episode. Send. I said, where's Murph Dog? You know what they said? Okay.
I'm scared.
They didn't say a damn thing, because they ice me continuously.
Yeah.
Let's get into this, baby.
I'm Lester Holt.
Howdy, Holeheads. Kurt Money here, alongside my co-host,
Kateline.
and we are here to go back to the vault. Because guess what we don't have time for? The Daybells.
Yeah, we're not interested in watching that Lori Daybell mess of an interview with Keith.
Yeah.
I'm trying to give you the truth, and you really don't want to hear it. So you want the truth want the truth that you already think you know. I'm the only one who knows the truth. And I'm trying to give it, but if you don't want to hear it, I will be happy to be quiet.
I really thought it might have been so annoying we might have a Remy 2 on our hands. Like a Remy Part 2.
Any question, ask me. I'll be more than happy to provide.
But I couldn't even finish the episode. It was just, woo, baby. It's an infuriating watch. Holeheads.
When Chad came along and said, you're a goddess and you've lived since the beginning of time, and
Who
so is
said
he.
that Chad said that? Are you saying that Chad said that?
No, I'm.
Did you hear Chad say that to me? You've heard a lot of stuff, Keith, and
But
I'm here
what-
to say you've heard a lot of stuff,
What-
but what I tell you will be the truth.
I don't think Keith was having a good time either.
He really wasn't, because she was really trying to do some flirty stuff, or like joking, and it's like, this isn't gonna work. You're a murderer, on trial for murder. Like, what makes you think Keith is gonna flirt with you?
With really poorly tattooed eyebrows.
Oh, those were tatted on.
Oh, they were tatted on.
I've known people who have done the makeup tat, and my opinion has always been, that's a mistake. Where does Makeup Kate fall on that? I always think it's not a good move.
I like when people microblade their eyebrows, but this was not a good job.
What do you mean microblade? That's when you tattoo it on?
You're supposed to, with microblading, you tattoo like individual hair strokes, and they look real, and it just helps fill them out and accentuate the natural arch. But hers look like Sharpies.
Really, Keith? Is that where you're going to go with this?
Well, sounds like we gotta hop into that vault. And we're going way back to season 20, which is like 2012. And this episode is called Deadly Conspiracy. I'm going to read the IMDb, and then, Kate, I'll get your thoughts. I've remembered everything. Huh. I'm crushing it. I'm crushing it, basically. Okay, IMDb. Jack Jessee was a family man who didn't seem to have an enemy in the world, up until the night he was killed. Was someone carrying a secret grudge? The case went cold, but a relentless detective was determined to catch Jack's killer.
Keith Morrison with Deadly Conspiracy.
Kateline, what'd you think of this, baby? It was a shorty, faux show.
I liked this episode.
Me too. I liked it a lot.
I've assumed you did because you picked it.
Yeah. It was, do you remember this one? I actually remember watching this. I don't know if it's from my Dateline Renaissance, like in 2018-19, or back when I was like watching it with the X and stuff live. I remember this Mousetrap. I remember it and still love. Where you at
did
on
not remember this at all.
Oh, okay. Well, I set it up. I mean, it starts off with killer thing that they stick with the whole ep is they're doing B-roll shots of a Mousetrap game. And Keith starts with them classic VO.
The game is called Mousetrap. The little ball on its track, the tiny taunting mice.
I mean, this feels like a lot of the reasons why I love this ep, there was a lot of great Keith stuff in it. I felt like there was fun Keith stuff, and the Mousetrap runner was excellent. I will say, here's what... Okay, Deadly Conspiracy, though. That title's Stinkeroo. I got a better one. You ready for this? Mouse gets cheese, ... and murder one. Line, What do you think?
It's a little long.
What?
It's a little long.
Okay, how about just the Mousetrap mystery?
Yeah, but it's not about mousetraps. It's just an allegory.
But it's an allegory that the lead detective of the story said first, and we hear him say it later.
Yeah.
I reminded him of that Mousetrap game.
I don't know. I mean, look, let's not get caught up on it, but I think Deadly Conspiracy is a stinkeroo, and there aren't enough people to merit a conspiracy, and, anyway, title week. But episode setup, good stuff.
How often things go wrong to allow the mice to get away.
Okay, our story begins in 1998, and old Keith sets the scene for us, doesn't he? Do you remember some of the plants he puts to let us know we're in 1998? I love this stuff.
Let me think. References to movies.
Yep. Shakespeare in Love
Yep.
won the Oscar.
It was 1998. Shakespeare in Love won the Oscar.
Now, I hate to have to do a segment so quickly, but this is 1,000% a BYB. B-roll you busted. Because they show them winning the Oscar. That happened in March of 99, the following year. KM.
Okay.
Now, he's correct in saying that in 1998, the best winner was, like, the winner of that year was Shakespeare in Love, but they're showing a Getty image straight from when them holding their Oscars. You busted. I'm sorry.
Busted.
So they should have said the 97 winners because they won in 98.
If they wanted to show a picture of someone holding an Oscar, honestly, they could have showed a still or a moment from the trailer of Shakespeare in Love and been just fine. Mm-hmm. That would have worked. They just had to do that Getty. And also in there was Harvey Weinstein, so you could tell this was pre-2017 because you don't ever show a picture of that guy unless you're talking about his
You only show a picture of him if he's shackled or sitting in the wheelchair looking like a lump of boiled meat.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, and also, Monica Lewinsky was freshly famous.
Yes.
Kind of weird, but he did say that as well.
Monica Lewinsky was freshly famous.
I don't know that we needed all of the mention of what was happening in 1998. He's never done that before. All of these stories take place in different years, and we don't usually get like a pop culture rundown.
True. I prefer it. I love setting the vibe like that. That's a big thing for me. But maybe it's because of the, like, day planners play a big part in this.
The day planner.
Maybe. I guess it just stuck out to me because nothing in this episode has to do with the media, pop culture.
Right.
Nothing like that. If this was like a Hollywood story, and some are, maybe you could say what Hollywood was up to, but it felt a little disjointed. I'm not mad at it.
Yeah, I feel that. Now, this is it's not gonna blow your mind. I think it's gonna confuse your mind because I'm still a little shaky on it. Back in 2012, they were doing new episodes on Fridays and Sundays. Do you remember this era?
No.
Me neither. And it seemed that the Sunday ones were two shorties together because this, I don't think, was ever a fatty. I think it was only a shorty because it was part of, there was a whole other case that they did on this episode on that Sunday in 2012.
Okay, that explains the ending.
Abrupt?
Yes.
Okay.
Because they had to cut in Lester where normally it would be like, next up,
You're right.
we talked to so-and-so. But they just went, and that's it.
That's all for now. I'm Lester Holt.
That's probably totally why. So you think this was the first story they did?
Yes.
Okay. I love it. Great call. Okay, our story begins in August of 1998, the hottest night of the year, Keith says.
Hottest of the year.
And we are in Placentia, California. How about this name, Kate? It's too close to placenta. What do you think?
You don't like it?
I'm not saying I dislike placentas, but every time I say placentia, I'm going, boy, that's awfully close to placenta.
You think it should be pronounced placentia?
Well, I like that.
It's not often Little Placentia, California has a murder.
Jack Jessee calls his daughter at about 9 p.m. and is like, hey, my wife, Sandra, is nowhere to be found. She's been gone for a while. All she did was go on like a little shopping errand, but she's been gone for a while. What's up? So Jack's daughter, Cheryl, cruises around her haunts. She goes to like a drive-through in like the shopping center. Can't find her. So she goes back to her dad's house to report in like, I don't know where Sandra is. And what did she find when she goes inside?
Well, Jack's dead.
Yeah.
Even though she was only gone for like 15 minutes.
Yeah. Was she at the house originally though? I don't think,
15 minutes from when he called her and she drove around and then came back.
The timing of all of this is interesting, as we'll find out later, but you're right. I mean, a lot of stuff had to fall into place there for that to happen within those 15 minutes.
Yeah.
In those 15 minutes, she was away from the house.
So this is really sad, though. She finds her dad with like a pool of blood on the floor, and she thinks, oh, he fell and hit his head. So she starts doing CPR, and she sees bubbles coming up through the stab wounds in his chest.
Yeah, she could hear the gurgling.
That was rough.
Because every time I started doing CPR to him, every time I breathed into him, I could hear like bubbling and air escaping. Then I start feeling it on.
So they call the cops and the one detective in town. So Placentia feels kind of tiny or something because they've only got one detective on the case, and that's Detective Wyatt. He gets the case, and his first thing that he does is he investigates the daughter because she found the body. And how does that go? Because all of the family members basically come downtown to get interrogated. They're all game this first night to catch whoever did this.
Sure.
And what's the vibe with the daughter?
Well, she's devastated and I think clearly innocent, but she's skeptical of her stepmother.
That woman was off her rocker. Her tone was just scary.
This wife, Sandra, comes in and we see a little bit. She agrees to talk and she talks to him for a few hours. What's the vibe in the family with Sandra and everybody?
Sandra has a son, and she and the son,
Tom,
live with Jack. Now, her daughters from a previous marriage, they don't live there, but they do make note of the fact that, well, they don't like her. And they think that her relationship with her son is really, really weird. They're too close. It's like the umbilical cord is still attached.
The specific of it was they would go into a room to talk and shut the door behind them. What are they talking about in there, Kate?
Now, I don't think there's any weird incest going on.
No.
But I think they're going in there and talking shit on everybody else in the family. And also plotting a murder.
Yeah.
He was a really big mama's boy, to the point it was strange. Very weird.
Very weird.
Weird thing to watch.
They're always walking into the other room and closing the door.
Yeah.
But when we see her interrogation, this woman does not look like her husband was just murdered.
No.
She is not upset. She's not crying. She's just chatting, talking completely normally, giving facts, how she sees them. And then she starts going through her purse and her day planner and pulling out receipts and notes and just casually shooting the shit.
Yep.
It's very strange.
Mrs. Jessee came to the station with us voluntarily, told us that she would cooperate and wanted to help us solve the murder of her husband.
So the cops talk to her and everybody else, and Keith plants this seed, right? He says, meanwhile, day after the murder, a guy walks into a bar. Great Keith stuff here, right?
And then the day after the Jack Jessee murder, guy walked into a bar, sat down on the bar stool, and told the bartender a story.
Now just remember, this guy walks into a bar and starts running his mouth, because we don't catch up on that till later. But then they're like, we still got some questions for Sandra. You know what? Let's get her on the horn, ask her to come down again. I'm sure she's down to talk again. And what's Sandra's response?
They never talk to her again. That's it.
She lawyers up. She said, I'm not talking to anybody.
Sandra announced she had now helped as much as she could. She was done.
This is where the blood relation comes in and says, you got to investigate. Because, like you were saying, Sandra's half of the family, they don't want anything to do with this investigation. But the blood relation to Jack is like, no, you must investigate. And you've got to start with Sandra and her fam. And this is where Keith throws to commercial and says something that I feel he has said before. Do you know what I'm setting up here, Kate?
No.
I swear to God, he says this verbatim in at least one other episode. He goes, and living with Sandra was like a fairy tale written by the Brothers Grimm.
Uh-huh.
That's a Keith catchphrase, I feel. Don't you think you've heard that before?
Living with Sandra, said Jack's daughter Cherie and Cheryl, was like a fairy tale.
It's too late now.
The kind written by the Brothers Grimm.
Is that almost a list item?
Oh, him saying the Brothers Grimm?
Mm-hmm.
It might be. You could snag it if you want. No? Or you think it's a K-Money list
It's
item?
a K-Money item. It wouldn't be on my list.
No. You do have a list item in here, Kay. I wonder if you caught it. We'll see. We'll see. Okay, so the backstory on Sandra is she dotes on her own kids, does not like the other kids, wants them out of there. And a few months before the murder, Jack had been diagnosed with colon cancer. And now this is bummer news for the fam, but Sandra, Jack's wife, is much more devastated to find out that her favorite son and kid and love of her life, Tom, plans to move to Arizona. And she is devastated.
She keeps trying to get Jack to move with her to Arizona, to be closer to him.
Yeah.
And she was flipping out about it.
Yeah.
She had to go there.
She demanded Jack move to Arizona too.
Now, Placentia is not that far from Arizona. You can drive this in a couple hours.
Yeah.
The idea that is still too far away is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But Jack didn't want to live in Arizona, because why would he?
Yeah, he's suffering from colon cancer. I don't think he wants to move while he's, dealing with this. It's kind of like, no. I got roots here. Let me die here or something. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, unfortunately, after the murder, Sandra's not talking. They don't have any evidence. They don't have any DNA or anything. And Sandra ends up moving and follows her son Tom to Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
So now she's out of state, and that is a classic. Well, guess what? The case is cold now. Congrats, right?
This was so frustrating.
That's all you got to do.
The fact that they moved one state away just put up all these roadblocks in the investigation.
Yeah.
And she was able to buy a very nice home there with the insurance payout she got from Jack's death.
Yeah, she got like almost $700,000 between like the insurance and everything. And she got her house, a house for her daughter down the street.
Mm-hmm.
Like she's living large. So the detective Wyatt gets a promotion to lieutenant or whatever's above. Is there anything above detective? Like if you're a good detective, is your dream to sit in an office all day and be in charge of people?
Isn't sergeant above detective? Or captain?
Right, but
Captain.
Okay, but that just means you're a boss of people.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't want that.
No. And that's kind of the whole plot of like Top Gun Maverick.
Yeah, that's true.
He should be way higher ranking than he is, but he likes to fly. Why does he want to sit on a desk and tell other people to fly?
Oh, great point, Kate. And I'm glad you put that out there because I've been meaning to rewatch, and now I will, just to find a good old clip to throw in there.
You got some balls, stick jockey. I'll give you that.
How many times have you watched that?
I can tell you that right now. Hold. You really walked into it, Kate, because you know I keep records of my watches. Top Gun Maverick. I rated it 10 out of 10.
Mm-hmm. As you should.
I've only seen it twice.
I think I've seen it 3 times.
Okay. Well, right, I'm going to tie you on that tonight.
Kurt, how many times have you seen The Burbs?
141. Wait, actually, let me double check. It might be 149. That's also something I know exactly. And most of them happened between 2019 and 2020. What am I looking up? The Burbs.
That's actually surprisingly low.
What? What are you talking about? Yeah, 149 plays. You think that's low?
Yeah. I think I've seen The X-Files Fight the Future probably the same amount of times.
Okay, but let's remember that the first time I watched The Burbs was in 2019. You watched Fight the Future when it came out in the 90s. Or 2001 or whatever, right?
98.
So you have 20 more years to watch your favorite thing is what I'm saying. You see what I'm saying here? I did most of these watches, like 130 of them happened within a calendar year. Still not impressed?
I haven't watched Fight the Future, though, in like over 5 years.
I don't know why you're not giving it to me on this math I propose. That you've had 2 more decades to watch it than I have The Burbs.
I don't know. Maybe I'm a bigger fan of my thing than you are of yours. And maybe it's a competition, and now we're gatekeeping.
All right, fair enough. I gotta pick up my numbers.
All right, that's enough of this conversation.
So now Wyatt gets promoted for whatever reason, and the case goes to Tom Dove. Now this is the hero of the episode. This detective. You're shaking your head, Kate. What's your take on old Tom Dove?
Okay, he says that no one in his department likes him. So immediately I'm like, okay, that means one of 2 things. Either he's a really good guy, and the reason why nobody likes him is because he's a good guy and the rest are just shitty cops, which is likely. Mm-hmm. Or he's that much worse than the rest of the shitty cops that they don't like him.
That's funny. I mean, I gotta be honest, that was one of the reasons why I instantly liked him, because I feel it's always the first case. With a job like this as a cop, if the other cops don't like you, I think it's because they're lazy and they don't really give a shit.
And we learn from his wife, who is very attractive.
Yeah, totes babe.
Totes babe, on the scale, way hotter than him.
Well, they met in high school, so he might have used to be a stud.
He got her young.
Because I was doing the same math. I was like, damn, Dove, you really locked it down with a baby.
Okay, Dove.
I mean, this is...
Dove
It's frustrating for him, putting all this work in, and to think these people might literally get away with murder.
We learn from her that when he gets on a case, it takes over his entire life. He does not stop until he gets an answer.
That's right.
He's like a dog with a bone.
Yep.
And yeah, maybe that drives the other cops nuts because he makes them look bad.
Yeah, and one of my favorite cases of everyone else hating the other cop is with Robert Picton in Canada, a guy who killed 49 people and put the remains of some of those 49 people in nationally sold beef products. One of the cops that solved that was also hated by everybody else. And it's always because they're like, you're not doing the status quo. Mm-hmm. This is a run out the clock situation, and you're actually trying to like solve murders and like find closure for people. We're not into that.
We're just trying to get our money.
Yeah. So I liked him. I'm not going to give him All-Star because he's already got a whole Dateline dedicated to him.
Uh-huh.
You know how strict I am about giving all-stars to detectives, okay?
Yes.
I did like this guy a lot, and I especially loved him when the dead guy, Jack Jessee's brother, when he found out that that the case had been handed off again, we meet him. I think it's David Jessee, and he's like, "Oh, that's great. Let me ask you a question."
Yeah.
Right? Wasn't this great?
Okay, cool. Yeah. One quick question: are you gonna f me?
Yeah. Are you gonna f me, Dove?
I said, "Oh, really? Well, that's great. Let me ask you a question. Yeah. What are you gonna do? You're gonna get my case for 3, 4, 5 months, a year, and then move up?"
And Dove is like, "No, everyone hates me. I'm not going anywhere. They're never promoting my ass."
I loved that so much. And even he said, "Look, I retire in 5 years, but you're getting me every day of those 5 years."
Mm-hmm.
And you could tell that David, the brother, is smitten because these are a direct quote. He goes, "I said to him, 'You're the man.'"
I looked over at him. I said, "You're the man."
Love it.
Keith was loving this interaction with David. The two of them sitting at this little high top.
Yeah.
They're just having a great time. And Keith was kind of giggly with him a little bit, I thought.
I gotta say, the whole production team was having fun with this ep. With the amount of setups they did with Dove, of like him with his tools in his garage, and like Dove playing pool and stuff.
You know,
I mean, then the Mousetrap stuff, like...
That was interesting. It wasn't really the usual B-roll of the detective walking outside, looking off in the distance, stressed out.
Yeah.
He's standing in front of his beautifully organized tools, talking directly to camera. It was not the usual. I thought that was interesting. And maybe it's because it's an old ep, but yeah, I liked it.
There's an excellent B-roll thing that happens later that I'm going to wait till it happens. So David the brother is stoked that Dove is on the team. He's like, "You're the friggin' man. I love you, dude." And he also says, "Oh, by the way, my brother, before he died, said, if anything happens to me, my wife probably did it."
Classic.
And we hear the same from Jack's kids. One of the daughters that we talked to, they bleep it out. I think she said bitch. Do you think that's what she said?
Probably.
He actually told me. I wouldn't be surprised if killed me.
Okay, so Dove takes this info of like, oh, okay. All right, sounds like I got to get to know this Sandra. But because Sandra's not talking and stuff, and it's been a few years, he goes back to the beginning. He starts with the case files again. And I mean, Kate, talk about list items. One of us should really add this. Because what happens when he dives into those case files, aka files that have been there for a long time? He finds a 2-page report where a few years after the murder, somebody had called in, a bartender, who was anonymous. But a few years after the murder, somebody had called in and said, "Listen, this is going to sound weird, but the day after Jack Jessee died, a guy came in and told me word for word how he and his buddies did this murder." And the reason why Dove believes it is because they knew how many times somebody had been stabbed, and they knew that they had entered through the back, okay? So he's buying it, going, this is probably true. And I think at this point he even says, and I know I can name names. I mean, it was Jack's wife and her son.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're the ones behind this.
They were Sandra's son, Tom, the mama's boy Jack raised as his own, under the direction of the mastermind herself, Jack's wife, Sandra.
Classic. These are the cops that I think hate Dove, are these lazy bones that don't like look into anything further. Because someone took this down and just put it in the file. Don't you think if you got someone saying, "Hey, I heard a murder confession and here are names," don't you think that should have gotten to the top of the pile? What do you think?
Absolutely. I mean, we just saw this in the last episode.
We see it a bunch, this is the most infuriating thing about these. How many times we see a great detective doing good detective work and it's solved by just like retracing their steps.
Yeah, somebody just looking through the file. Just reading the evidence.
Yeah. And that's not all he finds out from this call, okay? The caller says, "I talked to the guy who was the getaway driver. There was also the killer." And he said both these people worked at a big box department store. Mm-hmm. Which I think is a great little phrase. And also, he also has this little detail. The driver used the blood money to buy a brand new pickup truck and a Sea-Doo. Mm-hmm. So remember that.
The man who told the story in the bar that day had been the driver of the car, and with the blood money, he'd bought a truck and a Sea-Doo.
Now, these are wild details to see on some random forgotten police report. And so now Dove is sitting here going, all right, Sandra is definitely involved. And now this is when he goes back to that original interview and tell us about this. He rewatches the interview with Sandra at least 10 times.
He does. And he notices at one point when she's going through her day planner that she pulls out a little piece of paper that was stuck in it, says out loud, "Oh, this is my son's friend." and then puts it aside.
Yeah.
And for some reason, this really grabbed him. He was like, well, okay, we heard from the bar that it was she, her son, and his friend. So maybe this is that friend. And wouldn't you know, her day planner is in evidence.
Evidence. This is crazy. 5 years later, he's going, if I can find that day planner, I bet I can page through it and maybe look at what she was talking about. And this is a win for the police department because they still had that evidence.
So he goes through this day planner page by page, entry by entry, and he finds that little piece of paper that he thinks is the one that she mentioned in the interrogation.
Yep.
And
yep.
It has just one name scribbled on it, a last name.
Yep.
And he can't really tell what it says, but he thinks it says Schreiber.
Yeah.
Now, we see a close-up of the actual piece of paper, and Kurt, that did not say Schreiber.
Just said Schreiber, that's all it said.
Just said, I thought Schreiber, yes.
Where would he find this Schreiber?
You could have read it a few ways.
Yes.
It did not clearly say Schreiber.
No,
and
because it was written in cursive, and some of the letters were very loopy. Now, I can read cursive.
Good, honey.
But this was written very quickly and haphazardly. So it definitely could have been several different names. But Dove was like, this says Schreiber. So he's like now going down this path of investigation looking for someone with that last name.
I guess it's good that cursive is kind of gone now for cases like this. What do you think? Print is easier to read, is it not?
It is.
I mean, it could still be written sloppily.
But cursive is faster.
Really? Is that why it was invented? Because it was faster, because everything's connected?
I think so. It's definitely harder for me to write print.
Really?
It takes more effort to complete each letter rather than just connect them all. I do think it's funny, though, when people don't really know cursive. So I saw an example of this recently where they don't know cursive, but they think they do. Mm-hmm. And so they just write it like it's print, but they connect the letters. But that's not, I saw it once where someone did like a B, a lowercase b, and they just wrote the B and then had like a tail come off of it to the next letter. And it's like a B that's not how you do a B in lowercase cursive.
Yeah.
A lot of the lowercase letters look like completely different shapes, but it's funny that young people are like, oh, it's cursive.
Yeah. A B is a great example. I was going to say, no way do millies know what a Z is.
No.
A lowercase Z.
Nope.
Or an uppercase Z in cursive, for that matter.
Yeah.
Boy, now that we talk about this, when I'm taking my little notes on the app, I'm going to do the next time in cursive, see how it goes.
Okay.
So he's watching this tape. He gets this name Schreiber, but he goes back to the tape and notices that Sandra also says, my son and his buddy, they work together at a Target.
Mm-hmm.
Sandra said the boys were once work buddies.
I met him at Target when they worked together.
So now he's thinking, if the bartender's right, this third person who's involved here, that could be the Schreiber guy. So, let's look into this dude. Now, this is crazy to me, okay? Because it says that Dove crisscrosses across Southern California Targets looking for an employee named Schreiber, but nobody there had heard of that name. Couldn't he figure out where Sandra's son worked, which Target he worked at, and start there?
Yeah,
or no?
That was weird. He knows Sandra's son's full name.
And that he worked at a Target.
He could search the Targets for his name.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm not going to hold it against him, but I'm glad that you're with me. It was a little suspicious.
I mean, maybe that's what he did, but Dateline fudged it a little.
Maybe.
Diabolical.
Okay, and all during this time where Dove is, hopping around Targets, Jack's daughters are getting care packages from Sandra. What did you think of this? Was this to rub it in?
I don't think they took it very personally, but she was just sending belongings to them. Jack's belongings that she didn't have a need for and thought maybe they'd like. Now they were like, she sent us junk. She didn't send us any keepsakes or anything like that. But in my personal experience, when family members have died, that's the kind of stuff that you have to take care of.
Yeah.
So yeah, you get sent the bowling bag. You get sent old shirts. That's just how it goes. I didn't feel like that was a f you to those daughters. But then again, it did have me thinking, well, maybe I should have been mad when that happened to me.
Well, I could see the reverse of this where they go, Sandra threw everything out. They didn't even let us go through his stuff.
Exactly.
That sounds more like a dick move to me than sending it off. Although I will say, I'm glad that we bring up bowling, because beginning when we're seeing the old Jessee fam hanging out, they say that they gather for a monthly game of 10 pin. They're not just going bowling, okay? Keith says, monthly game of 10 pin. And I was like, KM!
Even got together for a monthly game of 10 pins.
I love it. I'll be bowling here soon, so you know that if you ever text me like, what's up, you watching Dateline? I'll go, sorry, in the middle of a game of 10 pin, Kate. Can't talk right now.
Do you bowl?
So, look forward to that. Well, my mom got me and my sister bowling balls for Christmas a few years ago, and now that I'm in town and stuff, we're gonna go. We haven't gone yet, but I have a ball, and we went to the place and did the little finger. I had to get my fingers sized up and everything. Okay.
Oh, great! Does it have your initials on it?
No. They had the one in there from Kingpin though, with the rose inside of it.
Mm-hmm.
From the idiots that brung you Dumb and Dumber.
That's like one of like the most famous bowling balls ever. I was like, I like that this is here. It's an option. I didn't go for it. I went a classier way.
Flossin'. Where'd I get Munson?
What you doing there, Mr. Munson?
Flossin'.
Flossin'? Where'd I get Munson from?
The name's Munson. What I'm doing is flossing. This is called floss.
That's pretty funny.
Uh-huh.
Okay, Kate, that's getting watched tonight too, because the pull out to reveal that he's taking a shit in a urinal is one of the funniest things a little kid Kurt has ever seen in his life.
It's a good movie.
Also, the back tat reveal.
Mm-hmm.
Kingpin's funny as hell.
It is. It's a great movie.
Now, these two pinheads will teach each other about life in the fast lane.
Dove goes through all of Sandra's old phone bills, just looking for any numbers that could be connected to the murder. And there are 3 numbers that come up. There's one to a Target store, one to a pager, and one to a boarding house. And so he calls these numbers like, hey, do you know a Schreiber? Do you know a Schreiber? And this is after he'd already tried all the Southern California Targets, right? And he's still saying, where's that Schreiber, damn it? Calls the boarding house, and they say, no, we don't know a Schreiber. But...
We do know a Schrauber.
Schraubin.
Schraubin?
It's I-N, yeah.
Oh.
It was Brett Schraubin.
Not Schreiber.
Schraubin.
Okay, so now he's cooking. He's going, okay, Schraubin. Samsonite.
I was way off. I knew it started with an S, though.
So now that he's got the real name, he tracks him down, and he finds out where this Schraubin lives, Brett Schraubin. And when he goes to his house, what does he see in the driveway that says, oh, I got the right motherfucker? Do you remember what he sees in the driveway?
He sees a Sea-Doo.
And a 1999 pickup truck.
Yes.
Boom!
But my heart is with the Sea-Doo.
Of course. Always.
And right there, parked in the driveway, was a 1999 pickup truck and a Sea-Doo.
That's so funny. The things that he bought with the blood money, he's like, hey, they're coming with me. These are my pride and joy.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
so trashy.
The happiness that Dove felt when he was like, well, this has got to be the guy.
So
when he saw that frickin' Sea-Doo.
I guess it's Phoenix because, well, I don't know, because where are you taking that Sea-Doo in Arizona? Lake Havasu?
Yeah, no, Schraubin is still in California. He eventually, which we're not going to say yet, but he's going to be moving to Arizona soon.
Where is, off to the Googs. Okay, so Placentia is not close to water. So where is he taking those Sea-Doos?
Oh, wait, but it's in Orange County. That's close enough.
It's inland. And also
But Orange County, the county is by the water.
You don't really ride jet skis in the ocean.
True.
You do, like, in the Caribbean and stuff.
Right. Or if you're escaping from Canada to the U.S.
Yes.
Yeah, but also think about the kind of people who are, like, selling jet skis.
Okay, so now he wants to get a wiretap on Schraubin and everybody involved. And this is where the nitty-gritty comes down, where it's like straight from the wire and stuff. The stuff that he has to go through just to get a warrant to tap some numbers.
Mm-hmm.
He can't get the warrant until he proves that these 3 were all in contact. And this is where I got to pause things and say, BYC, B-roll, you're crushing. Because they show like a VFX shot of, like they're connecting the dots between the 3 players with like these like laser lines. And then it cuts to hands crumpling that up in a ball of paper. So like they printed out the last frame of that animation and then shot with a lower frame rate, real hands crunching it up. That's good stuff. What do you think?
That's a lot more effort than what they usually do.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of effect you could do way easier now. So I love a lot of the B-roll in here involved like getting an inkjet printer and like convincing some PA to put their hands in the screen to crunch it up. Like, this is the kind of production stuff I love. It's too easy now. They wouldn't have to do it. But anyway, BYC, B-roll, you're crushing.
Crushing.
Okay, need to wiretap. So his first move, classic cop that I love, is he gets his own garbage truck.
This was crazy.
I love it.
He gets a garbage truck that will pick up just Brett's trash.
Yep.
It'll come through when the other truck comes through, but it'll pick up his trash and they bring it to a parking lot around the corner.
Yeah.
And Dove is sifting through his trash by hand every week.
And it is an hour away. He gets up at the crack of dawn and goes out there to root through this trash. I love it.
And his thought process is maybe this guy is going to throw away some important evidence. But to me, this is so risky because it's been like 5 years. The idea that he wouldn't have already thrown stuff away by then, that's a lot to hope for. And to go week after week sifting through the garbage. But crazily, it works.
It works in two different ways, right? Because so he's got to prove that these three are in contact. And he finds a phone bill with coffee spilled on it. That's the first time it works because he's talking to Sandra's son, Tom, 24 times in a month.
Mm-hmm.
So Texpert, they're doing some division there. It's almost like once a day.
Almost, Keith says.
Every day to every other day.
Yeah.
Correct.
But here's the problem. Schraben's cell phone is in another person's name.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe like Schraben's fam is paying for his phone or his wife or something, right? So he's got to prove that he's the primary user. And this is where Dove, again, I'm just going, you're knocking it out of the park. He goes to Target where Schraben still works, okay? He's pretending to buy shit. He's like leafing through the back to school supplies. And he sees Schraben and he calls his dude out in the parking lot and says, call that cell right now. And so he lays eyes on Schraben as he answers his phone, Schraben here. This is the proof he needs to prove to get that tap. This was sick, huh?
In an age of everything being very technical, this was very analog. This is a very old school way to do something. Like, I saw him pick up the phone.
Yeah.
We got him.
Shoe leather style. And I just like, this is police work.
So what we ended up having to do was literally follow Brett Schraben around until we saw him on his telephone.
And so while this is happening, Dove is still looking through the trash and he finds something else that falls into his lap. Now this, when you're talking about what are we going to find, it's been 6 years since this murder. What could this guy possibly throw out that'll help our case? Do you remember what he finds in there, Kate?
I know I'm going to remember as soon as you say it.
It's actually what sunk Sandra during the taping. For whatever reason, Schraben throws out a 6-year-old day planner that were for the years 96, 97, 98, and that's even more proof that they were all talking and connected at the time. Like, these three people are involved. That's why we deserve a wiretap for all three.
Mm-hmm.
And so they've got it. Judge approves it. They're stoked. But Dove, being the thorough guy that he is, still going through the trash, finds some listings for houses in Arizona. Uh-oh, Schraben is moving out of state. So that means all the shit they did will not count.
Which is so frustrating. You shouldn't be able to get away with a murder just because you move.
Yeah. Now, what ends up happening is, I mean, they play this in the Dateline like this is another time the ball fell off the track, right? Like that rascal mouse escaped.
Mm-hmm.
But the solution is they just go to the Attorney General in Arizona and beg them. They present their case to the Arizona people.
They flew to Phoenix, presented their evidence to the state attorney general, pleaded for an Arizona wiretap warrant, and they got it.
And they approved it as well. So this makes me think it kind of sounds like what keeps cops from doing this out-of-state stuff is they just have to do double the work. And
Laziness.
They're like, well, that's where we draw the line.
It's laziness.
Yeah.
Once Dove goes to Arizona, they give him like 100 men.
Absolutely.
He's got a team of like 100 people working on this.
He's got 100 people, and this is what they called rattle the tree. Now, we know this is something else now, Kate. Do you know what they're calling it these days? They call it tickle the wire. This is when you
tickle the
wire.
Meyer often found himself in the mood to tickle.
He even calls the original Detective Wyatt in Placentia and says, do you want in on this? And that guy's...
And he's like, hell yeah.
Yeah, but he's like, I'm at your service because I'm part of the problem.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, thank you for involving me.
And I just said, let me fall at your feet and do what we can to help.
Oh, and this is when Dove, in his like game day speech to all of his players, he's like, think of it like the game of Mousetrap. And in the background, Keith's going, you see? You see what I'm doing here? And I said, Keith, well done. Well done.
I reminded him of that Mousetrap game you played when you were a kid. In that huge ball bearing was going to have to go through a tremendous amount of obstacles that were kind of thrown together.
This is cool. Do you remember what the piece of cheese was that they sent out? They were doing stuff with phone calls as well, but what do they do to rattle the tree first?
They send something in the mail to Sandra, her son, and Brett.
Yeah, they send an article about the original murder from back in 98. And, like, this doesn't just rattle the tree or tickle the wire. I mean, this straight up lights everything up. They've got calls of them going, like Tom calling Sandra and being like, how do they know about Brett? I don't know. What are we gonna, right?
And you hear her go, Brett? Why would they send it to Brett? How would they know that?
Yeah.
And then she stops.
Yep. Oh, it's so good.
They sent one to Brett. Yep. Why would they send one to him? How would they even... I have no clue.
Oh, we also, on top of this, Dove is pressing Brett Schraben's friends and calling them and going, hey, can you tell me about your buddy, Brett?
Mm-hmm.
And because he knows what's going to happen, right? He's rattling. And those friends call up Brett and are like, dude, you need to call me, okay? This is for real. Like, those voicemails were pretty funny, huh?
Some detective called me asking about you. What is going on?
Hey, dude, it's me. You need to call me ASAP. This is no joke.
And we hear every single one of these calls, and they and so now we've got Tom calling his mom and being like, we can't talk about this here, we've got to go talk about this somewhere else. And we hear them playing it live, and he's like, let's go to the church. And she's like, church? And he goes, well, just anywhere outside. Like,
right.
Stop making me talk about this, Mom. Like
she's dumb. They go to a shopping center, and the cops are tailing them and watching them the whole time. They go to the shopping center and they stand outside next to each other, but facing out into the parking lot, just looking like maybe they're pretending like they're not talking to each other. Like they're both sitting on a park bench doing a drop in a spy movie.
Yeah. Or Keith says, it's scene from a mafia movie, because it's just them standing there. Like, it'd be one thing if they were both reading a paper on a bench sitting down.
Mm-hmm.
But this looks suspicious as hell. The only two people standing outside are standing a foot away from each other, arms crossed, looking forward. Like, what? They're not fooling anybody.
So stupid.
Oh, I loved those shots. I f***ing loved it so much that they thought they were being so slick.
Mm-hmm.
They thought they were being slick.
There it was, like a scene from some mafia movie.
While they're taking all those pics, Dove flying back to Orange County, to Placentia, and bugging more of Brett's friends. And this is how he finds out the identity of the bartender. They didn't really clarify how he found him, but it's when he's saying that he was calling all of Brett's old associates. This is where he finds the anonymous caller. And do you remember the guy's reaction, the bartender's reaction?
Well, he was eager to tell him all about it, wasn't he?
He was, but when Dove went up to him, he said, like, hey, Mike, I'm here about Brett. And the Dove said that his face just fell and went white. And he goes, I knew you'd find me eventually.
I don't know why he wants to stay anonymous.
Great cue. This is where I'm at. Because I'm going, dude, you did the right thing, but why do you want to remain anonymous? Unless he's like still bros with Brett?
Or scared that someone will find out and they'll kill him too.
So now that the bartender is on the record saying this story, that Brett came in and told him this whole story about how it happened, this is enough to get Sandra and Brett arrested. And this is the first moment where we think we caught that mouse in the trap, but we didn't. Because one, not enough evidence for Tom, the son. He doesn't get arrested at all.
Not enough evidence to hold Sandra.
Judge ruled there wasn't enough evidence to hold her. She was free to go.
So now, the two big players in this are walking free. And so now the only one they can go after is this Brett Schraben guy, who finally, wisely, wises up. I'm going to pick one of those and say it. Schraben, he's the only one that's going to trial right now. And a few days before the trial, he says, you know what? I think I'm ready to flip.
Uh-huh.
If you guys give me full immunity and time served, I'll tell you what you want to hear. And they say, okay, good deal.
Well, but they don't give him full immunity, right?
Yeah, they do. They give him time served. Because you might be thinking of what the son gets. Because there's one more flip to happen later.
Oh, okay.
But even the prosecutor's like, look, sometimes you got to do this. Like, we thought it was a tall order, but like, we needed it. And I guess I get it. And according to Brett, look, he's still involved in the murder, okay? But according to him, he was just the driver and he got scared and didn't do the stabbing. It was actually his friend, a drifter, as Keith says,
sure,
that did the stabbing. And so now they've got enough to get all three arrested. Are Sandra and Tom tried together?
No, I don't think so. Although Sandra would have loved that. to spend more time with her precious baby. She'd love to be locked up in a cell with him, too.
That woman was off her rocker.
So when Schraben is given the deets, it kind of lets us fill in the blanks of how this happened, because he went to do it during the day and he chickened out, and then they went back at night and then his drifter buddy did it. Is that why Jack called his daughter initially and said, my wife has been gone all day? Is because she's been away because she's waiting for him to get murdered?
Yes. Yep.
That's crazy, huh? And how pumped was Sandra that the daughter found the body and not her? I mean, that's a huge help when you're a murderer.
So the daughter is not something that they anticipated, though. I don't think they expected Jack to call her because they murdered him right before she came by. Had she been a little bit earlier, she would have saw it.
I agree, but don't you think that they lucked out in the best way possible because of the timing? Because without the daughter, then we can assume that when Sandra went home, she would have found the body. So not only would she be the first suspect because she's the spouse, she'd be the first suspect because she's the one who found the body.
True. They did luck out, but I don't think they saw that coming. I thought the intention was for her to go home and find her husband.
Yeah, so I wonder what their headspace was at of like, oh no, somebody's here, but then it worked out in our favor. I don't know. It's just crazy.
However, the daughter was like, his wife's been gone all day for some reason, which is suspicious. Had she not been called, the cops never would have learned that. So Sandra could have said to the cops, I was gone for like 2 hours. It would have been less suspicious. So it worked in their favor, but it also didn't.
Okay. So Sandra goes on trial and Schraben testifies against her. And this is where we get the reason why. And this is the reason why Sandra wanted him dead was because Jack did not want to move to Arizona. And 2, Jack was using all of their hard-earned money on his health care. Like they were burning through money trying to keep him alive from colon cancer.
How dare he?
How about that?
She wanted his money before medical bills ate up their savings.
This sounds like we're not going to run into any problems with the verdict. But what happens when these jurors go in there to deliberate, Kate? What goes down on this first try? This was... Ooh...
It's a hung jury.
Because of one freaking lady.
But there was one lone juror who felt some level of compassion for Sandra.
And who was it that found that lady afterwards and said, you're an idiot?
Jack's brother, the awesome dude who said, you're the man. He found her and said, oh, I talked to her.
I went and talked to her.
What'd you say?
I said she was an idiot.
Now, how would they know which juror it was?
Isn't it true that the attorneys can ask for them to read who said what at the end of the trial? I think you can sit there and say who was the holdout and who was the this.
Yeah, but isn't it still anonymous? It's like juror number 1, juror number 2.
Maybe, but if that's not how he found out because the 11 other jurors went up to him afterwards and said, it's because of her. And now, oh man, they talk about how it got real heated in there in those 3 days, and they were talking about how like it seemed she shut down the more people were mad at her.
People were getting so heated and there was so much anger that she started to shut down even more.
And I was like, oh, I was so mad at this lady. Because why is it that she could not say guilty, Kate? What was her reasoning?
Because she had just watched 12 Angry Men and she thought she was the main character.
I didn't expect a turn. I thought you were all going to try to convince me. Wasn't that the idea?
Check, that was the idea.
Oh, I forgot about that. He's right.
Well, what difference does it make? He's the one who's keeping us in here. Let's hear what he's got to say.
That and because she felt sympathy for Sandra and the fact that she was losing money as each day went by. The lady literally says that. And I'm going, if that lady's married, somebody needs to call her husband. Okay, and keep an eye on her.
She related to Sandra Jessee's concern that Jack Jessee's illness would eat up their nest egg.
Mm-hmm. Even if that's true, even if she's a psycho and it's like, well, I get the need to want to save money.
That doesn't excuse murder.
Yeah, and you're not here to justify it or not. You're here to say whether or not she did it. So, like, that lady should never be allowed to be a juror again, I think.
No. I don't think she understands the role of a jury. That's very troubling. When they say a room full of your peers, that's worst case scenario.
Yeah.
Not my peers.
Nope. She's not one of us.
My peers know how a jury works.
That's right. So the prosecutor works on this thing for 2 years. Now it's time to try Sandra again. And this is when Tom finally flips on old mom and says, actually, I'm ready to talk. And so now, how devastating that must have been for poor Sandra that her son flipped
the
on.
love of her life.
So that's when Tom got 15 to life and second-degree murder. I mean, the book was thrown at Sandra. I think she's in there in life, no parole.
Finally, that little ball stayed on its track. The key mouse. was caught.
And what else is wild is Brett also named the name of his drifter buddy, and he went to trial in February of 2013, but was found not guilty. And I think it's strictly because he didn't have a cell phone because he was a drifter.
Mm-hmm.
If he had a freaking cell phone, he'd have been in on all those rattling the tree Mousetrap stuff.
Or he had nothing to do with it and it was actually Brett.
Okay. You think that's what it is?
Yeah.
I want to believe that too. Otherwise, the person who did the murder walked free from this. So that would be kind of a bummer. But yeah, that's what his defense attorney was saying too. Like, this is just a smoke screen. You're trying to get the, like, whatever. So,
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't see him either, which I thought was interesting.
But,
so maybe Keith also thinks he's innocent.
But Brett walked free too.
Yeah, 'cause for his deal. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he's a murderer. That's what I think.
And on that note, let's go to those lists. I don't say on that note till later.
Nope.
I think it's list time. Ugh.
I think it's time for those lists.
There you go.
Kate's unnamed list. I want to include the Sea-Doo.
Okay.
I know it's not a car, but it is technically a recreational vehicle.
Kate, I think 1,000% that's a car Kate thing. I'm with you.
And it is part of this case. It is a piece of evidence linking it together. So
absolutely.
Sea-Doo's on the list.
That CD is going to be in the poster. Faux show.
Oh, absolutely. You said there was something else that was definitely on my list, and you weren't sure if I caught it, and I missed it apparently. Did someone say piece of the puzzle?
Someone said puzzle. Someone talked about it like it was a puzzle that you had to put together.
Okay.
And I said, he didn't say piece of the puzzle, so I was like, ooh, Kate might have missed this one. Let me make sure I write it down so I give her a hard time about it.
Okay.
Click, 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 click.
There was just the infuriating puzzle, which had become more difficult with each passing year.
Boom.
Well,
puzzle.
There you go. Count it. Sea-Doo and the puzzle, and there we go.
Yep. All right, what else you got?
That's it.
Is this not a small town? Is Placentia not a small town? There's only 2 high schools. Does that help?
That is not a small town.
Now, I did some digging on Placentia because of something on my list. On to Kurt's Kick-Ass List.
Kick-Ass List.
Ton of movie shit happening here. We got the Shakespeare in Love of it all.
Mm-hmm.
And then at one point they're like talking about, when Keith says it's like a scene from a mafia movie.
Yep.
When they're outside talking on the stoop or whatever. That counts.
Like a scene from some mafia movie.
And then also, somebody said evidence of a struggle, so that's not signs of a struggle. Sorry, can't include it, but it was damn close.
I wouldn't say that's a sign of a struggle.
This was cool, though. At the diner that they're doing the shoot in at the very beginning, I don't know if it's the same place as with the pool hall or with the pool table, but I paused it, and there is a That Thing You Do poster up on the wall in the background.
Nice.
And I said, oh, interesting. Now, that's the only movie poster I see. Could it be? I did. Off to the gig. Guess what shot in Orange County?
That Thing You Do.
The movie That Thing You Do. Ba-boom.
Just calling to tell you to get your patootie down to the television studio. You're going to be on TV tonight.
So that's why they got it up on the wall.
Cool.
What do you think?
Love that movie.
All right, well, I guess that's it for my list. Is it not? Let me hang on. Did that. Okay, I talked about the BYCs and the BYBs. Tom Dove is the man. Babe wife. I think that's it. Will we be back with a new Dateline? I don't know. It depends on what they're friggin' covering.
Yeah.
But I would encourage the Holt heads to hop on over to the Patreon, search Aisle H, as in the aisle of a video store, where we talk about 2 non-Dateline things twice a month. We talk about things that are kind of Dateline-ish.
Kind of.
And the next one that we're going to do, Kate doesn't know it yet. I'm about to text it to her later or tomorrow. But it's like a 30-year-old British true crime show. And I cannot wait.
Oh.
I cannot wait. Okay? There's a whole lot of stuff going on with that.
Sweet.
So there's that to look forward to. And on that note, I'm Kurt Money.
I'm Kateline.
I'm Lester Holt. For all of us, I'm Lester Holt. Good night.
You got some balls, stick jockey.